All right, Derby fans, skating tonight from the near bench, wearing those sharp new black uniforms, accented with hot pink. It's the Brutal Beauties. Oh yeah, it's maxed. There we go. Skating tonight for the Brutal Beauties. Number 29, Maximum Overdrive. Number 4, Cherry Kiss. Number 12, Astrothought. Number 16, Black Mamba. Number 17, Bitch Please. Number 52, Gnarly Quinn. Number 172, Pikachu. Number 187, Sour Apple Teeny. Number 310, Full Metal Anarchist. Number 925, Evil Twin. Number 1981, Sandra Slay O'Connor. Number 2011, Colette Razorcat. Co-captain number 19, Skeletori. Your captain, number 2187, Princess Leia. Your coaches, number I loaned my jersey to Max, number 29, Coach Stink, and number 226, Honey Trap. And now taking the track from the far bench, wearing red this evening, it is the Bombshells. Skating tonight for the Bombshells, number 00, Novocaine. Number 3, Enema Burns. Number 24K, Gold Digger. Number 44, Magnum, Dirty Carry. Number 55, Skid Vicious. Number 68, Juicy Kill Tour. Number 182, Hannibal Lecture. Number 623, Hollywood. Number 114, Slappy Go Lucky. Number 1931, Mickey Mental. Number 1999, Show Nuff. Co-captain number 835, Scaren Yeager. And your captain of the Bombshells, triumphantly returning this evening, number 6, Tornado Alley. Coaches tonight for the Bombshells, number 1897, Impaler Swift, and number 1/3, Teaspoon, Abby Arsenic.
I made it. Yeah. Test.
Thank you.
All right, we're getting all set up here.
First on, let's take the track. Looks like
All right.
Slaya on the line for the Beautiful Beauties.
Al Annihilate joining me. Good evening, Al.
Good evening,
Hello.
Clifton. How are you?
All right.
And Tornado Alley on the jammer line for the Bombshells.
Yes.
And we're
We are
underway.
Underway, both captains out there for the first jam. Slaya's up to the front trying to fight through. I got to tell you, it's weird seeing these black jerseys thinking Brutal Beauties, but that is a sharp look for them with those pink accents on the sides. I approve.
Black jersey. Love a black jersey.
Yeah, so that's Slaya up to the front, is going to drive that last blocker out of play and get clear. Your first lead jam is for the Beauties. Tornado Alley is out right behind, about length of the turn behind. So Slaya's going to try to catch up to the pack, get what she can, gets by Juicy. Off to the inside, knew she was heading off and called it off heading off the track. So we'll have our first points there.
Early jammer race there for everybody.
Very
Slaya
much
had
so.
what, maybe just that 1 point available. Yep. 1 point for Slaya.
All right. It was official timeout. We're going to make a time adjustment here. Let me get off the horn so they can discuss that. One moment.
Yeah, so they did go ahead and record that 1 point for Slaya in that first jam. So we're coming up on the second jam. It looks like all of the lineups just went back to where they were.
Yep.
So we will probably see the same folks come back up.
Yeah, I would imagine. Have to defend Baby Bat there. That was not Baby Bat's fault. The scoreboard computer got stuck.
Yes,
so
we were
stopped responding, but
furiously button mashing.
we
up
were,
here.
yeah. After you had the 18 mashes of the please stop button, it actually finally responded. And we were commenting, wow, it actually works. We have Scary Nager. We have our two co-captains at the jammer line, number 835 Scary Nager and number 19 Skeletori.
Packs nice and tight together at the end of the straightaway, stretching to the front. Jaeger working on 2 blockers still through the apex and is out lead jam for the Bombshells. Tori working on, looks like against Gold Digger, comes up to a wall of friendlies and is out, almost not out. Hollywood able to catch her right there at the beginning of the front of the engagement zone. Takes Tori all the way to the infield. Jaeger almost through her first scoring pass and is successful. Transitions around Mamba in the front to have that full first scoring pass under their belt, coming around to score again.
Tori's got the star off in her hand right now. Excellent defense at the back of the pack. Hollywood's made this a personal mission to not let Skeletori out. Scary Jaeger mid-scoring pass. Still 12 seconds left in this jam. It feels like this has been going forever.
Looks like the Beauties have gone ahead and maybe abandoned the opportunity to score to make sure Jaeger didn't get any additional points there at the end.
Yeah, and Jaeger calls it off with a few seconds left on the jam clock. We will check that out. Very productive jam for the Bombshells either way.
1 penalty on the board for each team, so we're going to see a 6-pack there for jam number 3. Twin on the jammer line for the Beauties, and looks like Hanny for the Bombshells.
We're going to have a big pack advantage here for the Bombshells. There's 2 blockers for the Beauties in the penalty box here in the third jam.
Jam's underway. Hanny hits first, and then Twin to the high. Hanny a little fancy footwork, working against Slaya there. Twin working against Nova and Skid in the front, stretching the engagement zone, and is out lead jam for the Beauties.
Big cheer from the bench as Twin gets out. And wow, with the running start, Hannibal Lecture is able to get out as well for the Bombshells. Try to cap this at 1 scoring pass for Evil Twin.
Yep, so we see the Bombshells trying to get into points protect there, trying to get as far away and in front of Twin as possible. Let's see how she did.
Hey, out there in the stands and on Twitch, hit the chat. Who's at their first Bank Track Roller Derby bout? Yeah, we go. Oh, man, we got a heck of a contingent over there. All right, so let's kind of give you a little bit. Those 2 people wearing the stars right now, that is Bitch Please for the Bombshells, the Brutal Beauties in black. I'm going to keep doing that. It's weird to see them in black. And 11D4 Slappy Go Lucky for the Bombshells. That's your scoring. That's your people who can score points. What they're doing right now, the teams are trying to get their jammer out while they keep the other jammer in. So it's like offense and defense at the same time, basically. You can see the blockers looking around, linking up. You know, kind of watch them because their helmets are all the same color. And you'll see the jammers trying to get out. And if one of them could get out, I would continue with my spiel, but at the moment, the defense is holding strong. So 30 seconds left in the jam. There's 60 seconds left. There's 60 seconds on the jam clock. If you were used to flat track, they have 2-minute jams. Bank track goes 60 seconds. You see that the star came off as well. That's something the jammer can do. They can pass that star to the one wearing the stripe. That's called the pivot. They start at the front of the blocker pack when the whistle blows, and they can become the jammer, but absent that, they are kind of the captain of the defense. You'll see the pivot often calling out instructions. Now, you finally saw Slappy Go Lucky get out of the pack. What happens is, had Slappy had time to get around to the pack, every opponent they pass, after they've gotten out and gone around, you have to get out and go around, every opponent they pass is worth a point. That's how you score. That's the basis of roller derby. We now have a chance to talk about penalties, because that ended up being, your score is 8-3 right now, no score for either side. Penalties in bank track are assessed in the following jams. So a penalty on a blocker means they're parked in the penalty box. Penalty on a jammer means your team doesn't get a jammer. You don't get to replace that. This is called a power jam. Basically now the Bombshells can solely focus on offense, but the Beauties can solely focus on defense, and it becomes a bit of a chess match when you have all 4 blockers for both teams out there. Right now the Bombshells are keeping, the Bombshells are keeping the pack very fast, trying to play keep away and try to limit the number of times Skid Vicious can get around instead of trying to wall up and play defense. That's your other power jam strategy. Kind of look at this as special teams a little bit, since it's a completely different phase of the game. Al Annihilation nodding. I'll let Al take away and talk a little bit about the power jam here, since I've never done one and Al's done a few. Go ahead.
Just a few. Thanks, Clifton. So in this situation, now that the pack has slowed down, Skid has had to change directions and move her way around the defensive blockers from the Beauties. So we saw like 2 different, we'll call it phases of the power jam being played there. A successful power D, where the Beauties were able to go to points protect in the front, really speed up the pack, stay away from Skid for as long as possible, and then active offense being played by those other Bombshells as the pack had to be squeezed back together through a strategy we call the accordion, right? So we saw that come back together, and Skid, what was that, 10-point power jam?
That's was a 10-point power jam.
Yep, that's good. 10 points or more.
Yeah, 2 scoring passes. We have Hollywood this time for the Bombshells, and that's Sandra Slay O'Connor for the Brutal Beauties. It's mid-pack. Hood got out rather quickly, and now you see that wall of defenders at the back of the pack coming together, trying to stop Hollywood now. You see at the front of the pack, there's Scary Yeager wearing the pivot stripe. You'll often see the pivot kind of geared up at the front of the pack. You'll see, when you're watching the Runaway Brides, you'll see Nova Kane and Lightning the Queen do that a lot, hunker down at the front of the pack and get ready to kind of key to block. Here comes Hollywood now. Sandra Slay O'Connor is going to try to follow her. Sandy and Hood are teammates on the Brides. They're both subbing in to help these teams fill full rosters tonight, so that's amusing.
Yeah, so normally they would be on the same team. So there's
Right.
a little bit of telegraphing of what is she going to do? They already know because they skate together all of the time. So go ahead.
Another important thing to note is you'll see the skater, the lead jammer, the jammer who gets out first is called lead jammer. And they have the ability to stop the clock before the other jammer can score any points. So that may be something that we get to have a chance to tap on that for a second. But you'll see the signal. The signal is kind of a vigorous, you're supposed to touch the top of your helmet and your hips, but at this point it's evolved into pretty much a vigorous chopping of the hips motion. However, that stops the clock. The lead jammer is allowed to do that, and so they can get their 4 points, 3 points, 4 points, and stop the clock. So that's an important procedural note.
On the jammer line for the Bombshells is going to be Tornado Alley, and for the Beauties, it is Skeletori out there. Yeah, I would say that if you're talking about roller derby nerds, the stats we're looking at is higher percentage of leads your team is able to obtain during a 60-minute game, the more likely you are to win. It puts you in control of not only point scoring, but the clock as well.
So Alley gets out, Tornado Alley, and skating right along behind is Skeletori to get out as well. The Beauties had just put a 15-point jam on the board with Hollywood. Extremely productive regular jam while they kept the jammer penned in for the Beauties.
Right, so this jammer race is stopping. That was a really good example of a jammer race, and a close one at that. So if you're out there in the crowd, you would have seen Allie try to pass as many Brutal Beauties as possible, have that quick motion tapping her hips to make sure that the referees whose job it is to watch her call the jam off before Tori scores any points there, right there at the back of the pack.
We have 4 points for the Bombshells. Bombshells have jumped out to an early lead here of 37-3, and it's going to be another power jam for the Bombshells. Skid Vicious on the jammer line. Brutal Beauties it's another 4-on-4 pack during this power jam, so the Beauties do have their whole defense. However, there goes Skid.
Skid's coming around on her first scoring pass, able to bust through the pack on her initial, coming around now scoring. Every Beauty she passes, it's going to be a point for her and her team. Split pack being called, so you're going to see what do we have? 9 skaters all come together there. Skid working against Cherry in the front, 1 blocker to beat. Actively recycling. Twin tried to get there but was unsuccessful. Cherry still wants the Beauties in the front in a points protect situation. So we have Slaya by herself in the back. Razorcat being neutralized to the infield. Skid easily able to pass them. A little offense being played on the rail right there in the blocker box. Skid able to finish up that last scoring pass.
If you watch the regulators on the infield, the referees, you'll see the two pack refs are the two that don't. The two that have headbands are your jam refs, and they count points, And when you see the pack refs, we refer to them Bender B. Rodriguez and Ref Boyardee. The front pack ref has the GoPro on his camera. They basically are your margin tabs on the pack. You'll see them calling out pack, pack, pack. They're defining the pack. What happens is the blockers have to be within 20 feet of the pack. And so the pack refs determine where the pack is and which blockers have to close in. The pack cannot be more than 20 feet apart, and you'll see those jam refs like they are right now maintaining that distance. Anyhow, we are back to this jam. That's going to be Skeletori for the Bombshells, and this is, the Brutal Beauties. It's a Brutal Beauties power jam. The Beauties get a power jam. Skid Vicious picked up a penalty during that power jam previously, and it's Skeletori all by herself. However, the Beauties are down one blocker, so are the Bombshells, so even pack.
You see the accordion actively being played here. Hollyhood and Jaeger in the front, staying away and quick in the front, protecting points, not only their own, but the points that will be scored by their teammates in the penalty box should their point be given away. Making sure the pack is fast not only keeps them away from the Beauties jammer, also allows them to get the jammer tired and ideally keep away any offensive threat in the back there. Excellently defended by the Bombshells power couple there of Hollyhood and Jaeger.
Looking,
we basically had two people skating backward, and I'm going to say somewhere between 10 and 15 miles an hour for a minute. You should clap.
Yes, that was, there we go, exactly. Yes, Al Annihilation will always get you cheering for defense. That's going to be Sandra Slay O'Connor for the Brutal Beauties. Dancing along the back wall, Hannibal Lecture once again for the Bombshells. Hanny is going to, Hanny sneaks by just a little tiny line along the coping.
I'm not exactly sure why Haney called the jam. There was some from her teammates, and that might not have been the desired result, but we'll see. There anyway, it was no harm, no foul. They are winning. No points were given away, and then both teams are going to have an opportunity to field another full pack there.
So the Bombshells call a team timeout as well. So that was, I'll freely admit that was just a little unusual, but you never know. I was going to mention, too, honestly, a great way to watch roller derby, and not just bank track, but flat track as well, is like pick one blocker and just watch them operate. Like, just keep your eyes on one blocker and follow them. Watch what they have to do in the pack. It's not just going around in an oval and being in the way. There's people are constantly moving and watching. And like I mentioned just a minute ago, watch the referees go around and watch what they do, too. They're as active as the skaters are, and they're also on skates the whole time. There are three teams operating out there, and it's really fascinating to watch any of them operate.
If you don't watch a lot of roller derby, there's a lot of other sports that are offense and defense in nature being played at the same time, and it's very much like either zone or man defense or offense in those other sports. Very simply, people will be doing one of two jobs. They will either be getting points or stopping points. So you'll see people in front of the jammer to stop points, and you'll see people interrupting the defensive structures of their opponent to get points for their own team.
So we have Impaler Swift coming out to hand a pivot stripe to the pivot. And now we have a star going to Tornado Alley. It looked like a power for a moment, but it is not. So Bombshells are all combobulated now. It is Slappy Go Lucky for the Bombshells, bumped off to the infield, and it's Evil Twin for the Beauties up to the front of the pack, and then just now gets help from a blocker, but great defense again. Spun off to the infield. The defense for the Bombshells has been real tough here in the opening strains of this bout. However, Evil Twin is able to get out for the Brutal Beauties.
Twin coming around to score. Slappy still being ground toward either the rail or the coping by the Beauties defense in the back. Looks like Dirty Carry and Hood working against Twin in the front. Hood out there by herself, stretching the pack to the front of the engagement zone. I do not know whether Refi called split or whether he called pack is back. They almost ran out of time there in the front to block, but I think the pack came back together just in time. Twin calls the jam.
Yeah, and you see the blockers at the front of the pack. When the blockers at the front of their pack are more than 20 feet away, and they have to stop and wait for the pack to catch up. They cannot go back like in flat track. And those blockers can't block. They have to then put their arms up and try to stay out of the way. They'll get penalized if they actually make an action to get in the way of a skater. So
correct. No blocks
Yep.
can be initiated outside of the engagement zone. And as Clifton just mentioned, you'll see that yielding behavior. It's actually the bottom 4 feet of the track that needs to be yielded in those situations.
perfect. We have jamming for the Bombshells for the first time, number 1931, Mickey Mintle. And jamming for the Brutal Beauties is Cherry Kiss number 4. Second straight jam for the Beauties that they've gotten out and gotten lead jam. Mickey's now going to take off for the Bombshells. We have Cherry Kiss is mid-pack trying to get by the skaters at the front of the pack and calls it off. May have gotten all of those points. You do get the point whenever you get by a skater, and you don't lose it if they go back by you again. And experienced jammers such as Cherry Kiss usually know who they've passed. 3 more points for the Brutal Beauties.
For sure. And then you see a little bit of like just manipulation of the body to make sure that those hips are getting past their opponent's hips, so they're going to get that score counted, that point counted by the regulators. Looks like 3 points on the board for Cherry Kiss. That brings the Brutal Beauties score up to 9 to the Bombshells 47. Dirty Carry on the jammer line for the Bombshells, and it looks like Full Metal Anarchist coming around for the Beauties lead jam.
The Beauties have come out of that team timeout. The Bombshells took a moment to talk things over, but the Beauties have come out hot. This is the 3rd straight lead jam for them here late in the first quarter. Dirty Carry's going to get out as well to try to cap this at 1 scoring pass for Metal. Metal finishes it off, and Metal took about 2 seconds and thought about going to get Dirty Carry and then decided not to. But there was a second there where you heard me inhale and Al looked at me, and I thought Metal was going to turn that. I thought Metal was going to go for that point, which would have been fun to call. However,
like a reverse jammer race almost. We don't usually see a jammer.
I saw her take 2 strides and then she went, ah. Anyway,
well,
that's
in a
fun to
situation
watch.
where your team wants
Of
to
course,
maintain
yes,
clock
right.
because they're not currently in the lead, it's
Yeah.
probably smart gameplay for
Very
Metal to
much
keep
so.
as much clock time available for more gems for her team as possible.
That's Tornado Alley for the Bombshells. That's Skeletori and Alley's going to get out and get lead jam to put a cap on that lead jam run for the Beauties. This could be the last jam of the first quarter. As Tori bounces along the back wall, that star is off for Tori at this point. I believe everybody's aware of that. We have Alley is going to dance past the blocker, gets by Black Mambo on the low side of the track, finishes off a scoring pass. Quarter clock is definitely going to expire, so this will take us to the first quarter break.
So in this situation now, with the Beauties jammer still not out, Red is absolutely trying to make this into, like, we'll call it a pseudo power jam. We want to make sure that we want to maintain that other jammer in. Oh, they were almost successful. This is going to cut down the amount of opportunity that Allie has for the rest of the jam, but she still has basically a whole lap lead on Tori. Little pile up here down
big
in
collision. Oh, look out.
in turn 3.
A brief moment there. We had 6 skaters on the ground. Several skaters collected like a NASCAR wreck. My goodness.
Looks like everybody's okay, going back to their benches.
Everybody up and good. I'll get your medic names, by the way. I feel bad, but I did not see the medics before the bout, so I'll get them to you as well. That's the last team that we literally, legally could not do this without as our volunteer medics.
Yeah, well, not the first time, the second time.
All right, discussion on score. So we are going to have the jam ref cover that. So that's why I got off the horn for a second. Here comes Gigi once again. So I'll pause and no, wait. Okay. Nope. Here comes Gigi. Officially, it ends up being a 9-point jam for the Bombshells, taking us into the quarter break. All right. So, quarter break. Listen, if you are new to roller derby, the thing I hate hearing the most is I didn't know what this was later on after the bout. Completely seriously, if you track down over here at the announcer's nest, I don't go much of anywhere during the bout because it's hard for me to walk, okay? So I don't even have a wristband because if I go anywhere, it's 2 feet outside the door to like breathe some fresh air. I'm always around. Come ask me. I love talking about roller derby. That may shock you, but if you ask me a question, I'll probably keep talking through when I'm supposed to be back on the air. Happy to explain things. Anybody wearing skate gear, anybody wearing a jersey, anybody who's not skating, anybody who skated earlier, ask. Ask in the Twitch chat. People will lurk in the Twitch chat, and if you ask in the Twitch chat, people will answer your questions, so get in there as well. I know we're on quarter break in the Twitch chat and they're showing the ad roll, but I will mention that when we come back for the break.
Cheryl's just let me know that announcer shoutouts are live in the stream. So she says, let's access those. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of relatively knowledgeable folks just sitting in the crowd, either ex-skaters or people that have been here as fans for AZD's now so many years of operation. Get your questions answered. If you're like me, I have a lot more fun watching sports if I have any idea of what's going on. And then that being said, we have about 3 minutes until we resume the second quarter of play. So make sure you're visiting our merch booth, getting a souvenir cup, and getting those questions answered in the meantime. We'll see you back in 2 minutes. Looks like we have an active challenge going on. Probably happened at the very end of the previous quarter. Slaya's out there, as is Swift. So what you're seeing now is basically justification for the challenge being recorded into Lollipop there in the white ball cap, the head ref. And then Lollipop is making that record and then going to walk across the infield to the cadre of regulators standing over there on the inside of the second straightaway. They're going to discuss whether or not the explanation, the justification holds water, and decide whether the challenge is going to be upheld or overturned.
So we have stepped into the challenge process. I wanted to let you all know that the announcer shout-outs that we started during Roller Rage are indeed live once again. A little program we have here during the broadcast. So if you're there on Twitch, you can do it here in the arena as well. You're free to whip your phone out. We'll announce the shout-out here for somebody sitting right next to you. I did that. That was fun. I was sitting behind Sandy and Volty and bought a shout-out and then made Sandy read it while I stared at her uncomfortably from across the announcer nest. It was that's the kind of prank that I do. Is anyway, just stand there like Ashton Jaunty in the backfield while Sandy was reading it. Anyway, so the shout-outs, what you do is on Twitch there is a link you can click, I believe. What you do is you go to the ticketing section of ArizonaDerbyDames.com. You click on the link, you make a donation to the league of between $3 and $10. A little program we have trying to raise a little scratch for the league, try to help us cover the rent each month here in this extremely expensive building while we look for more reasonable housing for the league. Anyway, then we will read that. We will read that on the air. Crash is up here to talk. That was a rather quick challenge. The penalty is upheld. So so get on there. We'll read those shout-outs live on the air. None of them yet, but we will read them live on the air as they drop in. I think I figured out how to keep the laptop from falling asleep, which was a running problem during Roller Rage, but by day 3, everybody was falling asleep.
Those 3-day tournaments are a slog, but they're super fun, and we've yet to hear back, me personally anyway, about how it went, but it was a fun tournament for sure. We do have Chingadera coming up in about 3 weeks?
Yeah.
So if you're in town local and you'd like to see a sanctioned RDCL tournament, we will have a 2-day, Saturday and Sunday, like round-robin full game tournament happening on is it 22nd and 23rd?
It is the 3rd weekend of the month. So today's the 1st, 8th, 15th, yes, 22nd and 23rd.
Yeah,
yes.
22nd and 23rd.
Right. So we're good
it looks
on that.
like Gnarly is in the box. I'm assuming whatever penalty used to be on the whiteboard but has since been erased is maybe the penalty that Slaya was challenging, but it was upheld and now we're moving forward.
No, it was
a Bombshells challenge.
It was a Bombshells challenge,
that Swift was challenging.
There we go, yes.
Has also been erased, so I don't know what it was, but here we go.
Yeah, the penalty was already gone, but
power?
it was it is a power for the Beauties. That was the essence of the challenge, was the Bombshells are trying to get their jammer back out there, and Princess Slaya's out. Excellent power by the Beauties, getting Slaya out, and that pack is stopped at cold in the backstretch. I say stop cold. You cannot stop. You must move forward incrementally, but you cannot stop in Bank Track Roller Derby. That definitely makes blocking challenging when you can't go backwards and you can't stop. Meanwhile,
a cheer coming up from all of the pink shirts out here in my middle bleacher section. People had their phones out, so I'm assuming we have at least a section of Beauties fans right here off of the second straightaway. Packs coming around through the first turn. Slaya working against that last blocker and recycling Carey and Gold Digger up there in the front. I do not know whether time expired or if Slaya called the jam, but it is over.
And we got a full 10-point power jam for the Brutal Beauties to start the second quarter. So the Brutal Beauties in the last 5 jams have scored 19 points. So have really thrown some points up on the board here. We have, however, lost a jammer for the. I heard you're down your jammer, and I see Hannibal Lecture calling out to the making the O symbol. So yeah, the Bombshells are now going to get a power jam right back. Hannibal Lecture on the jammer line, full pack of blockers. However, Astro thought, look out, goodness. Okay, excellent. Oh, just a very dramatic fall, but wow. And a big smile on their face on the bench. That's wonderful. Good job, Astro. That's, honestly, I would have to say in roller derby, it's like in theater. You got to know how to fall. And I don't. When I fall, it's like, people are like, man, you sold that fall. And then I'm just laying there not getting up. They're like, Clifton? No, I've injured myself diving onto concrete in improv shows before. I don't think.
Yes, it might look like we're diving onto concrete, but that's to be avoided absolutely here at the Holidays. Looks like an OTO. So as you saw Chase come out onto the first straightaway and hit both shoulders.
That's right.
And that's signifying that the regulators want to talk about something.
Yeah, that is in process right now. We wanted to let you know, Nikki Vada has just popped up here and let us know the silent auction down there by the door, down by where you came in with the tickets. Our silent auction is going on this evening. We have 5 prizes. One of those is the Ray Araya tattoo gift certificate that you are very used to. That's over $200. Lost Dutchman tattoo gift certificate also is over $200. I believe it's over $300. We have a Tempe Bar gift card bundle. You have it's $75 value. You got $25 to Final Round. You've got $25 to September's Bar and $25 to Netachetas on Mill. So that's a $75 value. You've got Goat Yoga, and you've got a Siphon Draw skincare bundle. So you can pop down there. You got those 2 huge tattoo gift cards and then 3 of the other prizes to check out as well.
If you're interested in the silent auction, it is just inside the ticketing booth.
Yes, that's right.
At the front.
We're back to the action. Statu variabilis, the status has changed. We have not a power jam for the Bombshells. The Brutal Beauties, after discussion by the regulators, have added a jammer. It's Cherry Kiss for the Bombshells. Cherry Kiss for the Brutal Beauties.
Yep.
And Skid Vicious for the Bombshells is going to get out as well.
Jammer race coming around here, a relatively tight race. Skid is trying to get what points she can, calls the jam. Cherry was well within the pack already, so very well may have scored some points right there at the end.
Yeah, we'll check that on the back end of the pack. What's challenging is that the Bombshells alternate jersey is black with red accents. So that the issue is that I see some of these numbers in black, and anyway, sorry, first world announcer problems, am I right?
Well, your brain starts to be like, that number isn't on
Yes.
that team, that number isn't on that team.
So anyhow, it was a 4-point jam for the Bombshells. That's Slappy Go Lucky at the jammer line for the Bombshells now. And out around the outside and clear. Your jammer for the Beauties is Evil Twin and is fighting to get by a 3-wall now at the front of the pack. Back of the pack closes in just in time to keep those blockers in play, though. And here's the first scoring attempt for Slappy, who's going to get ridden down to the infield. Excellent. Wow. Great job by Sour Appletini on the infield to cling to the coping with her toe blocks and not come off and make that an invalid block. If you come off the track while you're blocking, it's an invalid block, and the blocker gets to go on around.
There are yield rules, as Clifton was just explaining. The only time you're actually allowed to leave the field of play is if you've been contacted by an opponent. And if that opponent also comes off, you don't have to honor that position anymore. You can just hop on in front of them.
Slappy now weaving through the pack on a scoring pass and is going to get around the outside just as the jam clock expires. So excellent, very productive jam for the Bombshells, and a big cheer from the Bombshells fans down in the crowd. We'll check on the score.
Tori on the jammer line for the Beauties. It looks like Skid's up there again for the Bombshells. Some penalties look like they're being reported in. We got some personnel changes happening. Astra was on, Astra was off, Max was on, and now Max is off and in the penalty box. So Max just reported to the penalty box for the Beauties. Looks like Carrie's in the box as well for the Bombshells. So a 6-pack going on there. And again, Tori for the Beauties jamming and Skid for the Bombshells. Coming around lead, goes ahead and beats Mamba on the low there in the turn. Coming around for her first scoring pass. Tori really careful to tiptoe but not cut there on the infield in turn 2. Still working against a recycling Bombshells wall here in turn 3. Skid a little hop, skip, and a jump. Little coping jump for Skid Vicious coming around for additional points. Tori still in the pack. The panty has been passed to Bitch Please and is coming around on her initial pass as well. So for the crowds, you should see Skid score points here and ideally make sure that Bitch Please gets none.
And Skid's going to hold the hands and then call it off. Couple getting past the collision, was just waiting to see if Skid could get that last point. I was going to mention that. Check here and make sure everybody's up. There we go. Colette Razorcat taking a second to think things over before going back to the Beauties bench. I'll get into my whole spiel about they are Derby and you can too later on, but I was going to mention that when you see some of these, anybody with, if you can stay upright on 8 wheels, then you can play roller derby, period. You don't have to be, a fantastic 70s disco skater out there. But when you see these elite skaters like Skid Vicious just put a foot in the ground and take off, it is fascinating how fast they can go from 0 to a million. I saw Skid there getting blocked and a lane open, and then she just, and it's really amazing to watch some of these athletic feats from these skaters and things like that. Like I said, some of these skaters are real elite skaters out there, and it's fun to watch them operate.
We absolutely have some of the best bank track roller derby skaters in the world here in Phoenix, Arizona.
Absolutely. Then we had a star pass there. We have Skarin Yeager for the Bombshells finishing off a scoring pass, and the star has been passed for the first time. They've handed that over to Evil Twin, and Twin tries to get around. Great block by Hollywood at the front of the pack, stays on the track, and then Hood's going to sit there and just creep forward, crash. There goes, and not crash the ref, but I mean, as in like, the Batman symbol. That is Skarin Yeager running into the back of the jammer, Evil Twin, and Evil Twin kind of providing incidental jammer defense there.
Yes, that was actually just a little bit of like serendipity right there.
Right, absolutely.
So some penalties being reported in. So as Clifton mentioned earlier, you will see penalties assessed in between jams. So as you see players report there to the gray chairs in the middle, that means they were penalized in the previous jam and their team will be down at least their one position in the jam upcoming. OTO being called by Chase there, and they are working on making sure that everybody has reported correctly before they start the next jam.
So let's tell you, once again, those top two silent auction items that we always talk about, that's our Rhea Riot and Lost Dutchman tattoos. Let's tell you about both of those. They're league sponsors in addition to donating to our silent auction, so they're all around. Lost Dutchman Tattoo has been a sponsor of this league since long before I was involved with it. And then when I heard about them, I had them give me a tattoo. They're a tattoo shop specializing in various styles from realism to traditional, and you can also customize your own tattoo. Walk-ins are accepted. The shop is located at 4121 North 19th Avenue. That's the east side of 19th Avenue, just north of Indian School Road. It's across the street from that big Food City and Ace Hardware and My Mother's Restaurant. Banana cream pie. Get a tattoo and then safely cross the street and get banana cream pie at My Mother's Restaurant. Trust me, you won't regret it. And I'll show you my tattoo. You won't regret that either. That's Lost Dutchman Tattoo. And our other tattoo sponsor, yeah, you know what? It's roller derby. We have more than one tattoo sponsor. Deal with it. Rhea Riot Tattoo. Tierney is a tattoo artist who had a traditional apprenticeship and education not only in the traditional folkish art form, but also in the education of the craft, including building machines and needles and the history of the old workers' ways. This connection to the history of tattooing builds a deep respect for tattooing itself. Tierney is a native-born Phoenician whose life has always included creating art, with tattooing being what she's become most passionate about. Rhea Riot Tattoo, as I said, helmed by Tierney, who skates as Murder Mittens for the Coffin Draggers. Will be skating later tonight. And also as Skimble Shanks the Railway Cat for Clowntown, who recently skated at Roller Rage. So a very busy individual. Was giving out tattoos at Roller Rage, too. There's probably people here that can be like, look at this tattoo I got at Roller Rage. That's Rhea Riot Tattoo. And like I said, that's our top two sponsors for the silent auction down there as well. So head on down there and make a couple of bids on those items.
There's a lot of space in that blocker box, so we have two people sitting for the Beauties and at least one penalty for the Bombshells. So that's going to be a player advantage for the red team out there. The kinds of strategies you can play are absolutely impacted by the number of people you start the jam with. And Allie is coming around lead jam. Cherry is jamming for the Beauties, but is still currently in the back of the pack, working against a recycling wall of Enema Birds and Skid Vicious up there in the front. A fancy spin move from Tornado Alley does end up dumping herself into the infield, but is back up coming around actively score. Cherry still working against, waiting right there to make sure that Enema also comes to the infield and goes on and gets on in front and is coming around on her initial scoring pass as well.
Allie is going to catch up to the pack and gets around the out, just gets past Black Mamba, who's going to give it all for a block. So, interestingly, Al, now a lot of sports, once the score gets to a certain point, it's going to be out of reach. You know what I mean? Now, here's the thing about roller derby is that your score right now is going to filter in. We're going to see the Bombshells are up big at the moment. So the nice part about roller derby is that those power jams can be, when you're playing Mario Kart, and when you're behind in Mario Kart and you get like the blue shell or you get the lightning bolt that shrinks everybody, all those things. If a team can catch a 20 to 25 point power jam and then cut that lead immediately in half. So that's the beauty of roller derby. That's something that I love about this sport, is that you can have a game that immediately becomes close after two power jams over the span of about 5 minutes. So yeah,
yes,
you can never turn away from games like this.
It has a don't blink quality about it.
I always love telling people, we had a bout at Roller Rage 2024 where a team scored 60 points in the last 4 jams and almost won it, coming back from like a 100-point deficit. It was insane. So yeah, this is a never turn off kind of sport to watch. I personally love it. Big blocking along the inside. Wow, that is going to be Hannibal Lecture for the Bombshells. Got knocked flat to the infield, but up and going once again. Was I right about that? That is not Hannibal Lecture. That's Dirty Carrie for the first time. Sorry. Kind of similar look
Yes,
to the two of them.
Carey is coming around on a scoring pass, taking advantage of a little bit of like trip, clip, and fall. Just because one of your opponents is down and out of play doesn't mean you still can't get their point. So sometimes it's just lucky that someone is not actively blocking you and you can just skate past them.
Yeah, absolutely. Princess Leia lined up at the back of the pack there to provide extra defensive help, and that appeared to be a good strategy. That wall was able to kind of slink out along there. I love that defensive move. I liken it to when they throw a spike strip out on the highway, and the whole line just kind of extends, and that worked very well. Now, however, look at this. No. Okay, sorry. We briefly thought we had a power jam. There is confusion. Hannibal Lecture is shrugging and looking at Skeletori with a who knows look on her face. So you know what? They don't know either.
There is a little bit of we just go here. Once
there we
get
go.
out
Okay.
there.
Head referee steps out to provide the law, and the jam gets underway.
Jam's
Bombshell.
underway.
Sorry,
Yep.
go ahead.
Nope, go ahead. We got Hannibal Lecture working against Slaya there in the back one-on-one, and Tori working one-on-one against Skid in the front.
Skid
a little bit of lateral, like
Skid
joust
with the defense,
going.
and Skid gets her down to the infield. Skid won that defensive battle and then got knocked off through no fault of her own, and Tori got to go on around. What a defensive fight by Skid Vicious on the front of the pack. Boy, that is one of my favorite things when you see roller derby, is just one person defending the heck out of themselves.
We do love a defensive stand at the edge of the engagement zone.
Tori does get out, and Tori is your lead jammer for the Brutal Beauties and is through on a scoring pass. We've got Hannibal Lecture now is going to line up at the back of the pack to play jammer defense as well. The Bombshells only have 2 blockers out there, so strategy changes. Wow. Great blocking by the Beauties on that scoring pass. There's still 9 seconds left on the scoring pass. Skeletori is trying to get around. Hannibal Lecture gets out as well. It's rather academic at this point as the clock's going to expire, but you would check that off on your scoring sheet if you were tracking stats. Skeletori back up to the pack. That's going to be a full 10-point jam for the Brutal Beauties. 103-33 is your score at the moment. We're going to have an official timeout.
Yeah, so just like we were talking about earlier, that a 10-point or more power jam is going to be successful. A 10-point regular jam, and we say regular when both teams were able to field the jammer, is very, very, very successful.
Very successful to get a full 2 scoring passes and keep the other jammer in. That's how you build leads in this sport. We have an official timeout. The officials are talking things over, so let's talk about some more of our sponsors with the league. Sidewalk Surfer over there in South Scottsdale, not far from Coronado High School. Go Dons! That's my high school, and I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Sidewalk Surfer has a large selection of roller skates and skate accessories. They build custom skates and service all brands of skates. They're open 10 to 8 Monday to Saturday and 10 to 6 on Sundays, located at 2602 North Scottsdale Road in Scottsdale. That's Sidewalk Surfer. They, of course, they service, roller skates and whatnot, but I mean, any kind of roller item. They're called Sidewalk Surfer because, roller sports, roller recreation, anything. Really, they service everything. They are a full-service shop for anything you could possibly call a skate. And you can dip in there and then go over to Eldo and skate Eldo, and then, you grab yourself a couple of burritos at the Fiesta Burrito on 74th Street and head home. We have a power jam. We picked up some penalties. I smiled because I heard a penalty filter in on Skid Vicious, so Skid did get a penalty in that blocking fiesta. And it's a power jam for the Brutal Beauties, and Evil Twin is out. 55 seconds to go in the power jam. The Beauties have a great opportunity here.
Right there at the end of the straightaway, of the first straightaway, is an excellent place, always to escape, but especially during a power jam. You want to make sure that not only the pack is going very, very slow, but that you have as much time left on the clock as possible to get as many scoring passes as possible. And as Clifton was talking about earlier, this is an excellent opportunity to not just shrink up the gap between the Bombshells and the Beauties right now, but to also make sure that they use this minute to the best of their ability.
The Brutal Beauties clearly saw this power. I mean, I know they knew they had a power jam coming, and they're getting excellent. The bench is saying, get around, get around. Evil Twin is going to try to get around for another scoring pass here. The crowd is cheering. They absolutely planned for this. Look at the blocking with only 2 blockers out there for the Bombshells, and Evil Twin finishes it exhausted. Twin is gassed. That was a lot of skating, and you could see Twins stop and just take a long stared breath looking up at the scoreboard. That was a lot. We have
And
another official timeout.
OTO. Oh,
Double
timeout.
headlights from the infield. It's 20 points for the Brutal Beauties.
this is a really, really successful and much needed power jam
That's
score
right.
for
And
the
look,
Beautiful
as if to
Beauties.
punctuate me talking about it, that's 30 points and 2 jams for the Beauties. That's what you
Absolutely.
can do. That is how quick a team can score points and get right back into the game.
And because I'm me, I have to point out as well that it was the strategy being played by the pack that allowed the pack
Absolutely.
to be that still. And when the pack barely moves, that means the jammer who's coming around on those power laps doesn't have to chase, right? So the pack moved less than a whole lap in a minute, and that is where those really, really large power jam scores come from.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent display of, like we said, the special teams on the Power O. Saw Crash is coming over to talk to the OPR during this timeout. Yeah, the interesting thing is you can see hallmarks of teams that, like a well-coached team like that use that official timeout knowing they had a power jam with a huge pack advantage, and you could clearly tell it was like a coverage defense in the NFL. Everybody had an assignment, and it worked to perfection. That's a 20-point power jam is going to be, you could score 25. That usually happens in blowouts and whatnot. A 20-point power jam is kind of that's real good. That's when you're looking for double headlights. So excellent. Like I said, Brutal Beauties are really starting to come to life here in the second quarter as we approach halftime. This is going to be Skeletori once again for the Beauties. Skid Vicious out of the penalty box and out on the track for the Bombshells to jam. And Tori again to the inside. Tori's out. We've got Skid right behind, and Tori's not going to stop. We got a jammer race, and then Tori's going to call it off. Oh, man. Boy, I do love me a jammer race, but I'm never going to complain about them calling it off. It's always strategic. But, I thought for a second. That was, again, you saw Tori looked over her shoulder and then came back around with a grin and then started to take off. But Skid was game. Oh, my goodness. How do we got a jammer penalty on Skid Vicious so fast. Skid somehow picked up a power penalty. I'm so stunned. I'm stammering. That was such a fast jam.
It looks like Skid's being assessed a back block there. What's what
Wow.
I see on the whiteboard.
Okay, we've got
And just I think that there is maybe a little bit of misunderstanding about there being like no rules in bank track roller derby. There's actually quite a few.
Yeah.
And there are lots of we'll call it illegal target zones on the body that you can't actually move someone out of their position or cause them to fall and take them out of play. So when you're seeing penalties that are like contact penalties, it's usually because someone knocked someone down or moved past them by an illegal contact.
So you see at the front of the pack now, you've got Princess Leia tried to get around Hollyhood. Hollyhood was out of play, then came back into play and got down the track to block Princess Leia. That was, Jimmy Christmas. That is watching the refs, and that's skating roller derby for a while, I would imagine. Hands up to be out of play, and then knew she was back in play and whipped down to finish the block when she was back legal. Oh, Sleia just about by on the inside. Hollyhood does slip off, though. Sleia calls it off, knowing she wasn't going to have time to get back around. So there we go. Look at that. After a 20-point power jam for the Brutal Beauties, the Bombshells come back around, and they put a goose egg up there. That is a statement by the Bombshells. That could have been absolutely crucial and huge for the Beauties if they'd hung another 20 burger on the board right there, and instead the lead stays at 50 for the Bombshells. So excellent job by them of tightening down the defensive bolts.
You know me, I love a 0-point power D.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sandy is coming around lead for the Beauties, very quickly out there at the end of the straightaway.
Yeah.
Tornado Alley still caught at the back of the pack. Neutralized to the infield there by Razorcat. Sandy's coming around, ideally takes advantage of some disorganization of the Bombshells wall there in the back. Looks like Juicy and Hanny able to get together and neutralize Sandy, at least temporarily. Working on that for scoring pass still. Bombshell Jammer, Tornado Alley still not out. Looking for a little bit of additional cue. Appears to maybe even be playing some defense, making sure that Sandy doesn't get any additional scoring passes. Takes advantage of a little bit of confusion here in turn one and is now out on her pass as well.
10 seconds left on the jam clock, and Sandy calls it off at the back of the pack, leaving time for one more jam here in the second quarter. So as we approach halftime, Al, the first quarter, now I do what I can. I track stats during the championship bouts at Roller Rage, and that was like a kid in a candy store. Boy, that was so much fun tracking things like, and I had both sets of announcers at one point turned around and were like, is this correct? I'm like, it sure is. I love that, finding things like that. But in this bout, the Brutal Beauties had lead jam twice in the first quarter, and I'm going to say they've had like 7 of the last 8 as we head into halftime. So the Beauties are really starting to focus on getting the jammer out. I mean, not focus on, but having more success. You always focus on getting the jammer out. Having more success doing so as the game has gone on. So it's going to make for an interesting second half here.
Right, and like we said earlier, that is when you're going to see not only the score go up, but the control of the game actually. You can see it shift.
The Beauties were the Bombshells were really controlling the pace of play since they were having lead jam so often. Cherry Kiss now jamming for the Brutal Beauties and is up to the front of the pack. There's a 3 wall of defenders for the Bombshells. Quarter clock has expired, so we are at halftime when this ends. Cherry's going to get routed off to the inside. That's Hollywood and Scary Yeager. That's a rather fearsome defensive wall at the front of the pack, along with Slappy Go Lucky. Cherry not breaking through. They got Skeletori now along the inside. Still playing great defense at the front of the pack. I don't know who has the star for. Where's the Bombshells jammer? Where's the Bombshells jammer?
Bombshells jammer is in the box. This is a power jam. So what you're seeing what you're seeing is a goading strategy. So to try to get those last 3 Bombshell blockers all the way out of play, which is past 20 feet. The Beautiful Beauties were trying to hold that one player back with them to make the pack where they were in the back. But that goad really, really fought, kept the Bombshells in play most of the time. I didn't see any pack penalties being assessed, but there might have been.
I was going to say, that's a little embarrassing, honestly. I've been announcing roller derby a while. I don't usually miss the fact that it's a power jam when I'm watching. Wasn't that weird? I thought I saw a Bombshells jammer. That's why I'm looking. I'm genuinely looking around thinking I lost them.
I am pretty sure that there was a little bit of a late call-off.
Okay.
There's always going to be a little bit of a delay between what we can actually see up here.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people standing there in the middle. So if the penalty track is actually reporting into the box that there's been a jammer penalty, and that jammer just
that's probably what got me.
I
turned away to talk. I was going to goose the second half. We will be back momentarily. We've got a shout out here, and I'm going to read this again when we come back from the quarter break, just in case Twitch is already shut off. I don't really have access to. If my phone was on playing Twitch, it would just melt. I'd look over there, just be a puddle with a charger sticking out of it. Meanwhile, I just wanted to mention though, as we head into the halftime break, Gnarls, number 52, Gnarly Quinn. Dot says, "Rooting for you, Gnarls. Thanks." Dot. So we will read that again, like I said, for the benefit of the Twitch broadcast when we come back from the halftime break. We'll be back in 14 minutes and 12 seconds. That rolling whistle from game executioner Jason Voorhees means we are ready to get back to the action.
Had to go get some candy.
We have 30 more minutes of roller derby action ahead. Ellen Ialacha is next to me. I'm Clofton P. Grudge. We're ready to get back to the action. Bombshells are in front, 103-56. It is my duty to switch ourselves back over to the scoreboard. You're welcome, Sandra Slay O'Connor. I did it. Skarin Yeager is out there. I did it before the first whistle. It's all that matters, dang it. There goes Skarin Yeager getting through the pack. 53 seconds left on the Power Jam clock. Bombshells are going to start this second half with the Power Jam and try to build on that lead coming out of the halftime break.
Not a lot of resistance there from the pink jammer or pink blockers in the front. Bombshells working on one goat in the back, Razor Cat back there trying to slow that pack down. No pink wall to stop Yeager. A little bit of resistance from Mamba. Yeager with a transition around. 23 seconds left on the clock for more points.
Yeager now coming back by. I love when I see a skater get through the pack and immediately look up for that scoreboard clock. They use that so much to their advantage and to keep track of where they are in jams. Yeager gets by. 7 seconds left on the jam clock. Seems like it's been pretty successful for the Bombshells. And Al, I was going to let you know as the clock expires here, you mentioned a goad, and that's a strategy we see. Like, obviously, that kind of slows the pack down. And kind of explain how that works.
Sure. So what we're looking for in those power jam situations is to not only use the opportunity that our opponent doesn't have a jammer, but anything else that we can do to manipulate how long roller derby can be played. So, as Clifton mentioned earlier, you have to be within the pack to be able to actively play any roller derby. So you're going to see the team with the power offense get one of the defensive players behind them and really just smother them. That means the pack is being defined 20 feet behind or 20 feet in front of them. So if their jammer is able to push out anybody else to the front, no more roller derby can be played and they have to be let go.
Yeah, that was an excellent execution thereof for a 15-point power jam for the Bombshells. Meanwhile, the Brutal Beauties come out here and they have the second lead jam of the second half. Full Metal Anarchist is jamming for the Beauties and is currently mid-pack on a scoring pass. Tornado Alley has just gotten out for the Bombshells in order to force the call off, and Metal calls it off while spinning off to the infield. You cannot call off a jam while you are on the infield. 4 points for the Brutal Beauties, 118-60. Listen, hey, our medics, by the way, I was looking for Nacho Mama before the bout, couldn't find her, didn't know any of the medics. Nacho Mama apparently got into a bike wreck, so got our well wishes. Wearing a helmet, able to text on Facebook Messenger, so apparently okay enough to do that. Our medics this evening are Jason and Jace. Very easy. Jason and Jace. James and Jace. Sorry, James and Jace. I wrote it down incorrectly. Thank you. They're waving at us in the infield. And we'll tell you more about the medics in a bit. I want to cover the action here. That is Skarin Yeager for the Bombshells, as we mentioned. Yeager is out and clear. So
the Beauties do have a jammer out there. I believe we have a stashed panty at the moment.
Yes, that's Tori down to the infield with the star in hand. Hard to spot when it's black. When it's like a brighter color or glitterly like the ones the Transgender was using, it's pretty easy to spot when it's stashed.
Yeah, there are regulations that even dictate what a helmet panty has to look like. So no, Clifton and I aren't just talking about lingerie.
Right.
The stretchy helmet cover that you'll see the jammers in the pivot wear, that's the actual name. It's called a panty.
Yep. We had a 3-point jam for the Bombshells. The medics I mentioned, listen, hey, if you want to, we need medics to make this go on. This is a contact sport. We've got to have our 2 medics out there in order to keep things safe. We always say we would love for the medics we got a Beauties Power Jam coming up. Let me say that first. Princess Leia, Beauties Power Jam upcoming. Meanwhile, the medics, though, we need medics out there on the field. So we always say we hope that the medics just get to sit and watch roller derby really close up for 4.5 hours. But when called into action, we love that we have them there. We need volunteer medics. If you're a medic or if you know somebody who would qualify thereof, get in touch with anybody here in the arena that's wearing stripes, skate gear, me. We'll get you in touch with the right people. We would love to have more medics in our program. And we're so glad that we had extra medics to cover the fact that Nacho was hurt, because for a bit there, Nacho was like one of our only medics.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Jace.
That is correct. We're back to the action. It's 43 seconds into the power jam. Princess Leia just finished off her first scoring pass and is coming around for her second. The Brutal Beauties are now controlling the pace of play, and as Al just discussed, they had a goad, and now the walls kind of merged together, so looks like they get Sleia out, and now they got two goads back there, which serves the same purpose, but same thing. That means that they're going to fight, keep them back there. Those two Bombshells are happy to both stay behind that wall so that they can play defense together. Another extremely valid strategy is to go ahead and surrender, say, all right, you got us goaded, we're going to put two back there, and they can play defense. Look how well that worked for the Bombshells. You just saw it in action. The Bombshells completely slowed that down. Al believes Sleia got by all of them before coming off the track.
Was actively calling the jam while she was still in the middle of falling right here at turn 3. Do think that the regulators went ahead and honored that call off. Penalties being reported in.
All 15 for the Brutal Beauties. So, Beauties are keeping it. They are inching closer. 121-75. Keep an eye on this. Brutal Beauties are hacking away at that lead bit by bit, which is what you got to do. And there's a lot of Derby left to be played. So now back to the action. Black Mamba jamming for the first time for the Brutal Beauties on the jammer line up against Scare and Jaeger for the Bombshells. Mamba is going to race Bile on the outside. What a start, my goodness. What a block right off the outset by Astro Thought, number 12. Mamba is flying around the track, and here comes Scare and Jaeger's got the hammer down getting back to the back. Mamba weaves through the pack and calls it off. Look at that. That was a couple of jammers just going at it full speed. Jaeger was really getting the arms going. 4 points for the Beauties, 121-79.
And even in a situation where your team is not lead, if you're able to get out, it is part of your responsibility to shrink up the distance between you and the lead jammer to eliminate the opportunity for even more scoring passes.
Absolutely. You force the call off, and also if it's a messy call off or not, you never know. So you call that the pursuit, skate through the whistle, because you'll see at the end, like earlier, Cherry Kiss thought she got 2 points, and the ref said, nah, you did not. But you're still trying, exactly. You want to get there because you'll pick up 1, 2, 3 points on the back end sometimes.
Yep,
Brutal Beauties again. Lead
Twins
jam for the
out.
Brutal Beauties. Evil Twin is out.
Let's see. It's Mickey Mental still struggling against that pink wall in the back, against the rail there. We got Sleia and...
Evil Twin. What a block by Skid Vicious. Twin tried to jump the coping, and Skid Vicious with the well-timed upper arm knocked Evil Twin off and stayed on the track. So that really could have been an easy pass for the Beauties had that coping jump succeeded, and an excellently timed block by Skid Vicious.
So I think that one of the things that is maybe a little bit more difficult to see even from the crowd's perspective is that we have seen quite a few jammers have to be let go from the front because they are have stretched the blockers all the way to the edge of the engagement zone.
Yeah.
Remember, the engagement zone does stretch through to the back as well.
Right.
So you're also going to hear out of play back being called. So if people behind the pack, there's a limit to how far behind the pack they can be and still play roller derby as well. Looks like penalties have been reported.
That's
on
right.
the jammer line, we have Cherry Kiss.
Cherry Kiss,
and
number
Dirty
4.
Carry.
Dirty Carry, number 44. And Dirty
4.
Carry's going to get out. The Bombshells really needed that. Try to put a stop to this run for the Brutal Beauties. Beauties have been on a tear here in the last couple of jams. And again, I wish I was tracking stats because it's been one heck of a run. We've got Cherry weaving through at the front of the pack and is going to get out. So try to cap this at one scoring pass for Dirty Carry and the Bombshells. However, I really feel like the Bombshells needed this lead jam here to kind of break up that flow. They always say momentum's not a thing, and I always say, and yet, baby, until proven otherwise, I'll tell you what, I don't care how many Harvard-sponsored studies they show me that say momentum's not real. Momentum may not be real, but it exists. I'll tell you what.
There's definitely some ebb and flow about who is in control and why.
Yeah.
But even if we're talking about the existence of momentum, it can easily switch in a game as quick as the bank track roller derby. So we see, even though the Beauties have been very effective in the last, we'll say, probably 2/3 of the game so far at not letting the lead stretch out any farther than it is.
Yeah.
There's been enough power jams going back and forth to still have the Bombshells be able to take advantage of when there isn't a pink jammer out there on the track.
So we have an interesting jam here. Sorry, Al, I was going to mention, So we've got, oh, look at that, star pass. We have only 2 blockers out there for the Bombshells. That's a power jam for the Bombshells. And the Brutal Beauties have a full pack. Hannibal Lecter started off, clearly a strategy, skated straight forward and slammed that star down over a blocker's shoulder to Skid Vicious, who took it and took off. So that's one extremely effective way to get your jammer out, is just basically almost fling that star forward. You can't actually do that, though. We actually had somebody try to throw the star once. Not a valid strategy. That was an illegal procedure penalty.
The crowd gasped. Well, everybody that knew that that's illegal was like, can we do that now?
Yes.
So the answer is still no, you can't do that.
No, you
so
cannot
the
invent
Beauties
new
has actually done very well at incrementally recycling back up to the front, making sure that Skid didn't get out on any additional clean scoring passes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jam clock is running down, 5 seconds remaining. Going to go ahead and take all the time because as the Bombshells are currently in the lead, they want to manage that clock.
Yep. I hear loud clapping down there from where Al usually sits, but Al's next to me, so somebody's also applauding for good defense. That was a 5-point power jam for the Bombshells. So Skid did fight past all 5 blockers, and that's why you saw Skid kind of coasting along to, again, well, like I said, experienced jammers will keep tabs on who they've gotten past as they're going through the pack.
So alternately, we were talking about 10 points or more being a successful power jam. So 5 points or less, also very successfully defended by the Beauties there.
And you mentioned also with the lead, too. So the lead's 45 right now. We got 5 minutes left in the third quarter. Got 19 minutes of regulation left. So, you know, when the score is 60-20, that's kind of sticker shock. When it's 129-84, it's like, oh, okay, even though it's still 45 points. So, I mean, at the time I talked about it being a big lead, it was 50. And now here we are at 45. It looks a lot more attainable, and that's what I was saying.
Yeah, it's like dating in your 20s.
Yeah, the Brutal Beauties kept it close, you know, were able to kind of find their feet, and after they got hit in the mouth early in the game, have kept the lead where it is, and now they've been trying to hack at it, gave up a power jam there, still only gave up 5 points, so yeah, definitely a great defensive effort there. We have along the inside Slappy-Go-Lucky for the Bombshells. So Slappy is out there. The Bombshells, of course, are going to try to make the clock their friend and get as many points as they can.
So you saw that huge cheer go up. We had like a little straightaway jump, which is actually really difficult to execute. Slappy's been skating now for, I want to say this is Slappy's, it's got to be 7th or 8th season, spent 4 or 5 years as a minor assault.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Interesting thing there I saw, when Slappy got out, Cherry Kiss immediately switched to jammer defense. Immediately stopped, completely stopped trying to get out, drifted to the front of the pack, and so I'm going to keep an eye on that. That's interesting. I saw that switch in the pack while you were talking. We have a 5-point jam for the Bombshells, 134-84. And a power jam, a late penalty coming in for the Bombshells. Yes, still a power jam. Sandra Slay O'Connor begging for Princess Slay to come take the star. So please, come take this, my captain.
So it sounds like there was probably a predetermined power lineup for the Beauties.
Yeah, definitely.
And they wanted to make sure they had the right personnel out
Absolutely.
there to get as many points as possible.
And
so we have Slaya coming around as a jammer. Pikachu, also another long-time roller derby player here for AZDD. Let's Slaya collapse that red wall right there in the back and is able to take the low on a little bit of a low sweep there from Razorcat on the inside. Coming around on second scoring pass. Pack is creeping in between the apex of 1 and 2. Slaya takes a jump. Hanny moves to the infield to make sure that Slaya can't score those points through the air and has to get recycled all the way to the back of the pack there. Again, Pack moving super slow. Slaya able to tiptoe around the apex and come around with 13 seconds left to score additional points for the Beauties.
Yeah, that was great to get around that block and regain the momentum. That could have been huge coming to a dead stop like that, like pulling out in front of a semi. Those front blockers out of play. Slaya gets on by and another scoring pass. Yeah, man, getting around that block, getting blocked off to the infield and having to cover, I was just about, that could be a total momentum killer.
Yeah.
And got around it and still managed to get around another scoring pass. Excellent execution by Princess Slaya. 15-point power jam for the Brutal Beauties. It's 134-99 as we have an official timeout. 2:17 to go in the third quarter. I am full of trepidation because often an OTO after a power jam means they got a lot of penalties to talk about. So it could be a power jam for the Bombshells. We'll have to stay tuned.
Yeah, so we're looking at still relatively strong swings in momentum back and forth between red and pink. If depending on the strategy that the Bombshells play with that back wall advantage, playing from the close bench, we could see not necessarily focus on a whole bunch more scoring, but making sure that the Beauties score as little as possible.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is that maybe? Yeah, I'm kind of in my head canon. I don't know much about coaching, but I'm thinking, yeah, maybe there's it could be. We'll see. I mean, one occurrence is not a trend. Yeah, but it was just very interesting. Like I said, interesting. I saw just immediate switch. Linked up with the blockers, so that we'll have to watch that going forward. We got 17 minutes of regulation derby left. Let's let you know once again about the Twitch stream, the call-outs which will be read here in the arena and live over the Twitch stream. We wanted to mention the one we read going into halftime. We have one so far. Gnarly Quinn, Dot says, rooting for you, Gnarls. That's from Dot. We will read those shout-outs out loud. You go to ArizonaDerbyDames.com, go to ticketing, click there. For $3 to $10 donation to our league, we'd be happy to read your shout out on the air. There's also, if you're on the Twitch stream, there's a link you can click to make it easier. And I'm going to get off the horn momentarily. All right, that is all squared away. Timeouts and challenges corrected. All right, so what do we have? I have a penalty on Evil Twin. I saw.
Looks like Juicy's also in the box.
All right. Can we get that whiteboard one more time, perchance? They probably can't hear me. They really can't hear me down at the infield.
I think we're done.
Oh, well.
Both
we will find out.
teams do have their lineups ready, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Evil Twin's in the penalty box, then it is indeed going to be a power jam for the Bombshells in response to that power jam for the Beauties. It is not. I'm sorry. That's interesting. I thought, well, that's why I don't try to read the penalty board. The first time I tried to read the whiteboard all night and I misquote the penalties. Again, this is what I get. This is what I get. Why would you hire a blind announcer? Seriously. Meanwhile,
so we have Bitch Please on the jammer line for the Beauties and Dirty Carry for the Bombshells. Bitch Please tries the high lane. The whole pack goes high. Carry tries the low lane. The whole pack goes low.
Bitch Please is jamming for the first time for the Brutal Beauties here. Along the inside, tightly clustered pack is now kind of bunched up and now going to separate.
Why am I remembering her? Did she take a star pass earlier? I swear she already jammed, but I could be wrong.
No.
Nope.
She did not. Yeah, that one I'm sure of. That one I'm #never not statting. I got that one. I got that one down pat.
So we have Bitch Please working against Gold Digger in the front, able to cut out on an additional scoring pass. Jammer race now between Bitch Please and Dirty Carry. Bitch Please calls the jam.
Just calls it off. Yep, checked over, and yeah, Dirty Carry was gaining with each stride, so no points for either side. Be about a minute left until the end of the third quarter. Bombshells lead at the moment is exactly 35 points. It's going to be Tornado Alley for the Bombshells and Sandra Slay O'Connor, my boss, for the Brutal Beauties. No, it's a power jam for the Bombshells. There goes Sandy. Bombshells are going to get a power jam to not quite take us into the third quarter. We will have another jam left after this one. Only there will be a 1:04 on the quarter clock after this timeout. So
OTO
things could
well.
change. Nope,
Timeout.
things will not change. Just a team timeout by the Brutal Beauties. Okay, so you can sense the urgency with a team timeout before this power jam. The Beauties are at kind of a critical point in the juncture of this game. Right now, a 20-point power jam would be devastating to their chances. Now, that would not end it. Like I said, again, think of that time they scored 60 points in 4 jams. Never forget that. It's always possible, but it would be really hard, is the thing, to go into the fourth quarter basically with a 50 to 60 point deficit. 35 points is a lot easier to swallow with a good gulp of water. So, I'm sure that the Brutal Beauties right now are discussing power defense extensively, and this is going to be really interesting to watch because the Bombshells, of course, I see Swifty right in front of us actively talking to blockers as we speak. Everybody's got their marching orders after this timeout.
Yeah, I think that the crowd has probably also noticed that there's quite a bit of personnel shifting, very similar to when, like, I guess hockey players are like pouring over
Exactly,
the boards
right.
and actively switching out personnel. Most teams have power lineups predetermined, and it's going to be the people that are the most individually skilled and the best at manipulating strategy, position, lateral movement, speed control, all the things. So you're putting your aces out there to either get your team as many points as possible or stop as many points as they can.
All right, so we are set. 1:04 left in the third quarter. Like I said, this is not the last jam of the third quarter. We are underway in the Bombshells Power Jam. The Brutal Beauties start off right away and kind of form a bucket and dump Skid Vicious off into the infield like leftover dirt pulled out of a post hole, trying to find a way through, and they've formed quite a nice little tripod there, haven't they? They're going to spin Skid down to the infield. Interestingly enough, sometimes Power D is not about stopping, it is about limiting. And Skid finally gets out, but there are 31 seconds left on the clock. Skid Vicious is really good at getting out of packs. Making Skid Vicious take 29 seconds to get out is a defensive victory.
It was very well defended first 30
Absolutely.
seconds. To cut down the time that a jammer has to score by half is very, very impactful in a game like this. So we want the pack to be moving very, very slowly if you're the Beauties, unless you are actively going into points protect in the front. So Skid is working to get past that last blocker.
And
Successful, but they were successful also at recycling her back in.
They were.
Just very well defended by the Beauties.
Very
Great
well
job.
defended, absolutely, man. Just watching that unfold. Like I said, the chess match during, what it is you mentioned hockey. It's just like hockey. You send out a line of three players, three players in hockey when you're down a man, whatever, you plan for these things. You're down two men, you send out, men, sorry, I apologize. You send out two skaters, I'm sorry, you know what I mean, whatever, I do my best. Sportspersonship is a hard word to say, all right? And I made Sandy say it when I bought the quote, and I did it on purpose. Meanwhile, we're back to the action. The Brutal Beauties, after that defensive stand during the Power Jam, are now on lead jam. They've gotten out. Skeletori is going to take us into the fourth quarter. The Brutal Beauties are going to look to get over 100 right here. So, super exciting action here the last couple of jams of this quarter.
Very successful and good recognition by the jammer. You don't usually see the jammer calling for a wall to be formed in the back, but Tornado Alley recognized that it was going to be a powerful position for her and Juicy and Nova to just stay in the back and help and prevent Tori from getting out cleanly. It was the thing that prevented Tori from getting even more points in this jam.
It absolutely did. Tori was coming around. You saw the pack reshifting, and the Bombshells were hiding basically in front of the blockers for the Beauties. So Tori called it off, knowing basically even if Tori got by her skaters, that she would not get by any Bombshells before Allie got, you get it.
Correct.
So, all about strategy, man. It's fantastic. It's like the synthesis of a lot of sports. I've eaten a lot of sports in my life, having my stupid leg that's not quite straight, never being able to play them myself. And I will tell anybody about this. I trust my sports bona fides. This stuff is addictive as heck. We are into the quarter break. 5 points for the Brutal Beauties. 139-104. The lead is still 35. And we'll be back momentarily with the fourth quarter of this exciting bout, a contest for playoff seeding between the 4 and 5 seeds heading into the playoffs the second weekend of April. Be right back. I cannot overstate how big that bout is going to be, no matter who wins the second bout tonight. I am extremely excited to be here and be a part of that one. So that's March 1st here at the Hall of Dames. We're back to the action. Right now, it's the Bombshells 139, Brutal Beauties 104. As I mentioned, lead is still 35. Right off the bat, Princess Leia knocks Slappy Go Lucky down to the infield. big old cluster of skaters. Wow, big old tight cluster of skaters coming out off there. I saw a star get whipped off, and it's passed over. Handed over and taking over, we've got number
Max
29.
Overdrive.
That's Maximum Overdrive taking over as Jammer gets that star on. Taking around, Max jamming for the first time, gonna run right up into a
little
block.
bit of active offense being played
Active.
right there by Sandy.
Very good.
Max not able to take full advantage of getting through that gap, but that seam definitely opened, and Sandy did execute a high sweep right there in the apex. Super hard to stay on your skates when you're hit from the high side like that. So good job, everybody, staying up.
Max is gonna be right here in front of us and is trying to fight through and find an opening. Gets bumped off to the infield. Thank you, Castro. I appreciate it. Everybody's always trying to help me. There we go. I swear, the fact that I have to switch the scoreboard back on just drops into a black hole in my strange brain. I don't get it. Meanwhile, there we go. I mean, people just walk by and point at it at this point. I do my level best, I swear.
It's because the crowd is so into the game, they don't even notice. All right, so who do we have on the jammer line? We have
Skeletori by
for the
herself at the
Brutal
moment,
Beauties.
and I saw her make the power open signal.
The black marker is keeps going on
no.
the whiteboard.
Yeah, I was going to say they do. We got a penalty on Max while she was the jammer. That is the danger of the power jam, is it doubles your chances of, a star pass. One of the downsides of a star pass is it doubles your chances to get a jammer penalty. Max picked up a penalty after taking the stars, so jammer penalty. What happened is both jammers got penalties. It's called double jammer down, and both teams instead lose a blocker.
Correct.
Is what we've got going on. So now we have 2 jammers out there. Boy, that would have been humongous. 4 points for the Beauties. They would have been down just 30, 31. A power jam right there could have been huge.
Yeah, so there is a lot of if-onlys happening out here right now with the score being that close. Tori takes advantage of an open coping on turn 2 and is coming around at full speed to score. Jaeger, again, even though not lead, wants to give Tori as little time as possible to score, so is actively sprinting to make sure
This is gonna
that
be fast.
she keeps Tori from scoring if at all possible. Tori trying to get any points possible. Calls the jam before passing anybody. The pack was actively split there, and I didn't see the front slow down like they should have been required to, so we'll see if there was any penalties assessed because of accidental pack destruction there.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Sandy, as a very attentive supervisor, in addition to yelling at me to change the scoreboard during the lead up to the first jam, which was great, from the bench checking on me to change the
Is
scoreboard.
Sandy my boss too?
Yes,
Weird.
yes, technically. So that's the 2 heads of the AV committee out there. That's Dirty Carrie and Sandra Slay O'Connor. So this is the Clifton Babysitter Jam. Meanwhile, fought off to the infield is Sandy, trying to get up and down the wall. Dirty Carry down to the infield as well. Good defense so far from both teams.
Yeah,
Neither
both
team
lateral
yielding.
both teams defense laterally moving up and down to make sure as many lanes are blocked as possible. Keep those jammers in. This is what we would call like a regular jam. Both teams have a jammer out there. Both defenses are actively working. Both offenses are actively working. So it's basically a game of inches and seconds.
So
17 seconds left on the clock here.
what a block by Peak along the inside. Just eliminated a blocker.
Still nobody out, though.
Yeah.
Nobody out. Sandy barely gets out there. 8 seconds. Sandy should call the jam because the Beauties aren't winning and she will not have enough time to score.
Yeah, tried to get
Calls
back.
the
Not
jam.
quite. She was calling it coming through the turn. Sandy was yelling, but I was going to say, you're going through the corner. Gigi had her head turned momentarily. But did get it called off within a couple of seconds. So Sandy did decide to save some time there after trying to get back to the pack. But no points for either side. I would call that a win for the Bombshells because that's 90 seconds eaten off the clock. So even though no points scored, that was a defensive stand. Right now, the clock is basically the 6th skater for the Bombshells.
100%. As long as you can maintain an insurmountable lead that you can, hold off your opponent for probably 1 to 3 jams, it will be enough if you can stop your opponent from scoring. So Beauties are going to need an all-out scoring onslaught to be able to make up this little bit of a deficit with 10 minutes left. So, and that starts with getting lead jams, which they are currently not. Allie's coming around lead for the Bombshells. Take advantage of a little bit of confusion between turns 3 and 4. Tries to follow her offense out, but Tori is able to neutralize her right here in turn 4 to the infield, working against Cherry and Tori in the back.
Bitch Please got out as well and is going to come around to keep this. It looked like Tornado Alley was moving quick, and I thought that was going to be an easy scoring pass. Bitch Please fought out the front, and then Alley just got wiped out back here. You were calling that as I was watching Bitch get out the front of the pack.
With these really strong counter blocks that we're seeing, it can effectively neutralize all the speed that the jammers are building up.
Yeah.
And also, physics are at play, right? It is going to be we'll call it a cumulative effect when someone going slow hits someone that's going fast. So you'll see people come in with a lot of speed, but all of that get taken away if they're effectively counterblocked by their opponent.
We're going to have a timeout. As it was lining up, it was going to be we got an official timeout, so things can change. As it was lining up, it was going to be a power jam for the Bombshells, which again, as I keep saying, these are huge. 9:49 to go. I mean, the Bombshells, honestly, like I said, even if the Bombshells were to not score a point on this power jam, they would take, again, a full 60-second jam and 30-second break between jams. They'll take that 90 seconds any day of the week when there's only 9:49 to go in regulation.
Yes, you absolutely can run out of time to win in Bank Track Roller Derby.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So even without clock management, you only have a certain period of time. Yes, you can fit in as many jams as will fit in a 60-minute period of time. But when teams are purposefully going throughout the entire jam to give you fewer opportunities to score, it becomes a big factor as we come down to the last 10 minutes or so in this game.
Okay, another critical juncture of the game here. Both teams. Bombshells put 2 points on the board. It's going to be 141-108. It is still a power jam for the Bombshells, and that's Scary Jaeger on the jammer line. The Brutal Beauties have all 4 of their blockers, and they are going to take off. Wow, take off like a shot trying to get out of there. The Bombshells did goad up. Did they? No, they were accordioning. They did not. Yep. Accordioning, as Al says to me over here. And so far effective. So far very. Now they get a goad at the back. Now they've got Cherry Kiss blocked off to the back, but that front wall hasn't yielded yet. And Cherry Kiss fighting forward, breaks the goad. Gets forward. Look at that. Gonna get tangled up again. But
on
Scary
purpose
Jaeger
goes directly back in front of the jammer, which is exactly what the defense should be doing.
And then Jaeger gets around, but once again, just like we mentioned previously, it was 23 seconds left on the jam clock when Jaeger got out. Jaeger, again, just like Skid, is on the hot shots for a reason. Jaeger can break a defensive wall.
And feels the urgency, though, is skating.
Yes.
And is a highly skilled and one of the fastest jammers that we have in the league currently. Actively working against that wall. Able to get a full scoring pass right there before the jam comes to a close. But still a relatively successfully executed power jam defensively by the Beauties.
That's right. It's another 5-point power jam. So the Brutal Beauties, despite 2 jammer penalties here early in the 4th quarter, only give up 5 points on each power jam. So defensive efficiency, 146-108. At the moment, the Bombshells are in front by 38 points. We're going to have about 8 minutes and 15 seconds to go in regulation. And Dirty Carry right off the jammer line is going to try to play jammer defense against Skeletori for the Brutal Beauties. Now Tori finds an opening. Wow, dips around Novocaine. Little hesitation move by Skeletori, and Novocaine flew by like Dirk Nowitzki, just letting a defender fly past and then just casually tossing a 3-up NBD. Meanwhile, here comes Skeletori on that scoring pass. Bombshells jammer is now playing defense fully timed.
Yes.
Yeah, I get there. Well, here we are. So both teams now maybe employing that strategy and trying to just run the clock out.
So in a situation where you're already leading, why not, right?
Right,
as long as you can do that cleanly, why not throw another person in another lane, add more mass to the wall, more bodies to get around, another brain to help your team strategically keep that jammer from getting any points.
So basically now, we have Dirty Carry was the goat and slips around that back wall. They've got another skater back there. Tori gets blocked to the infield. Novocaine gets her revenge that time. Skeletori got dumped on her back in the infield, so even score there, I'd say. Meanwhile, I heard in my ear, let's see what we got. Brutal Beauties, 9-point power jam for the Brutal Beauties. We've got a timeout. It's a team timeout. The Bombshells are going to call timeout. So Interesting. Momentum breaker. 29-point lead for the Bombshells with 7 minutes to go in regulation.
We'll call it a shift.
It's
call it a shift
interesting.
toward
So
pink.
we're going to see how the Bombshells come up out of this next jam and see what we've got. I'll get off the horn momentarily. There we are. Just making sure Lolly was done. Okay, good. Wait, she's not.
All right, so we're just making sure that each team's legal stoppages of play, which through challenges and timeouts, are
Yep.
correct. Thank
Yep.
you, Lollipop, for that.
Thank you. Yeah,
And
scoreboard is not official on that.
Correct.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
being
So that's
kept
why they
down
come up and
by
update
the
during timeouts.
head ref
yeah.
in the white cap down there at the infield.
So we all good.
So we have teams taking advantage of that timeout, some plans being made by each team. We are coming down to a relatively critical time in the game for the Brutal Beauties. They need to not only make sure that they can make up and surmount the lead that's currently in front of them, but they also needed to prevent the Bombshells from scoring as many points as possible to make that catch-up a thing of reality. Jaeger on the jammer line for the Bombshells. And
I see why the
Evil
Bombshells.
Twin.
Yeah, Evil Twin. I see the Bombshells took the timeout. They've only got 2 blockers out there.
they went-
Critical usage of that last
Ugh.
team timeout in the second half.
Unfortunately, trip and fall there for Twin there on the rail. Jaeger tries the same path and is successfully and at least temporarily blocked by Sandy and Max there. And Slaya grinding there on the coping in turn 1 in the apex. Max comes around for a low sweep, does try to do a little shirt whip assist for Twin.
What?
Twin, one more transition around,
Wow.
and a jammer race is on. Twin
Wow.
unfortunately trips, and Jaeger is out. Lucky break there for Jaeger. A little bit unfortunate for Twin. Twin coming around, still able to score. Pink all the way in points, protecting the front, actively running away from the Bombshell swarming offense. Jaeger coming around to score, does score there in the back. Successfully is dumped to the infield by Slaya. Can she get up in time and call the jam? She does.
That was fascinating to watch that. I mean, I know I just stepped on Alan and couldn't stop myself from saying wow without shutting my microphone off. Whoa! That was what an effort by both teams. Both the Bombshells there, both to keep Evil Twin in at the beginning with 2 blockers, and then also to manage to get Jaeger out somehow and break that back wall by the Beauties. Both strength on strength there. Fascinating to watch. 3 points for the Bombshells. We've got Skeletori on the jammer line for the Brutal Bees, and Dirty Carry for the Bombshells. Dirty Carry, again, just like last time, starts off playing jammer defense, trying to slow down, keep them from getting out, running the clock. The Bombshells would be perfectly okay with the 0-0 jam right now. Dirty Carry is just linked up. They got a 4-wall at the back of the pack. Dirty Carry is just openly playing defense at this point. I mean,
Tori with the
Dirty
stash
Carry is
there.
within arm's length of the pivot, and I'm like, you could pass it. I mean, so
And she
obviously
does.
now takes off. Obviously, once the defense was broken, the Beauties did pass the star forward to Bitch Please, and going to have to call it off as Dirty Carry did turn and take off at that point. But yeah, interesting to see there at the beginning. It's always interesting to see the star as part of a 4-wall.
In that situation specifically, we see Bitch Please call it there at the end of the jam, but there was no impetus to actually do that. Could have went ahead and hit the pack, but what she did see was an unfriendly wall of Bombshells waiting for her
Yeah.
should she have arrived. So, and no active offense being played. So it isn't about giving up, it's about being strategic.
Skid Vicious
Panty is
up
off
into
again
the. Yeah, I was
for
going
the
to say.
Beauties.
Yeah, cap is off. Skid Vicious for the Bombshells. Whistle blew, turned around, skated right up to the back wall, and then turned around to wait for Princess Leia. So absolutely, right now the Bombshells are just skating an extra blocker out there, and then getting their jammer out once the wall is broken is their absolute strategy. And now Skid says, well, I'll take off because I'm no longer being blocked. Interesting, man, the Bombshells, a multi-pronged strategy. You can see how they just immediately switch depending on what's going on in the pack. So they really use that timeout to their advantage. Again, just both teams, great coaching moves by both teams.
And what you're seeing now is the Bombshells knowing that the clock is on their side.
Yes.
So they want to make sure that these jams go the duration, and if at all possible are in lead as well. So they're controlling how much clock is gone and how fast the pack goes, and whether or not the Beauties can score any points here.
Yeah,
Really trying to
absolutely.
capitalize on their lead and make sure that very few to little opportunities are given to their opponent.
We're going to be at about 3 minutes to go in regulation. The Bombshells get 1 point on the board, 150 to 117. As Al just mentioned, the clock is presently wearing a Bombshells jersey. 3 to go in regulation. Brutal Beauties are going to be looking for big points on the board and then be hoping for penalty jams at the end of that. We'll explain what that is in a moment. That's kind of like overtime in Bank Track Roller Derby. They don't have to be tied to have overtime. What? I'll explain in a second. Meanwhile, as we once again, immediate jammer defense by Dirty Carry, just immediately turning into a defender, trying to block Skeletori from getting out. The Bombshells are just going to keep killing that clock, and there goes Tori.
Not as successful that time, so that extra player doesn't work as well when you have 2 of your own in the blocker in the
Right.
penalty box. So they were already working at a disadvantage. It's a good idea when you have fewer blockers already, when you don't have the necessity to actually score any points. You can use it to your advantage by adding another player to your pack. Tori working against an actively recycling Bombshells wall, including their jammer Dirty Carry here between turn 3 and 4. Tori coming around for additional points if she has the steam. 16 seconds left on the jammer clock.
That was excellent defense all down the back straightaway by those 3 Bombshells blockers. Just kept cascading in front of the jammer. Just excellent teamwork and communication to make sure there was always somebody in front of Skeletori and just keeping that clock running. Perfectly happy with that. Everybody's okay back here. I saw Dirty Carry nod in response to that question from the referee Crash.
Okay, so we're down to under 2 minutes left of gameplay. 150 Bombshells, 126 Brutal Beauties. Skid Vicious on the jammer line for the Bombshells. And Full Metal Anarchist on the jam line for the Beauties. Little bit of shuffling around and OTO incoming. Regulars just trying to make sure probably that everyone's in the penalty box that should be.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
nobody is not. That shouldn't.
Absolutely. All right. Timeout. Great time to mention some things you can do during intermission if you're here in the arena waiting for the Valkyries and Coffin Draggers about to start. The silent auction, which is just inside the front door. We got 5 fantastic prizes. We already touted, of course, Lost Dutchman Tattoo and Rhea Riot Tattoo, both sponsors of the league and donating large value tattoo gift cards to that silent auction. I got to check the numbers. I don't want to misquote the numbers, but if my memory serves correct, they're both over $300 values. So step on down to the silent auction. The other options we've got Goat Yoga. I believe the Goat Yoga is somewhere in the $75 to $100 range, if I remember correctly. We got Siphon Draw Skincare Bundle, Siphon Draw Apothecary. We'll get to them in a moment as a sponsor. And a Tempe Bar gift card bundle, Final Round, Netta Chetas on Mill, and September's Bar, $25 gift cards to each one. That's the silent auction down by the front door. One option among many for the intermission between bouts coming up. Lead right now for the Bombshells is down to 24. I mean, stranger things have happened, folks. And fighting to get out is Skid Vicious. Now right along the inside is Full Metal Anarchist to force the call off. That's a quick call off.
And that was still an interesting decision, knowing that those are both fast skaters, and the pack was also very fast. I am a little bit surprised that we didn't see Skid just skate that out and race Metal all the way to the back of the pack.
Skid just comes straight back out to jam again after that one. And
Maybe that's why.
Could
Planned
be.
to maybe go back-to-back, save a little bit of steam for this back-to-back jam.
Bitch Please is going to be out there for the Brutal Beauties. I was going to say it's creeping and creeping. The Bombshell shifted into a clock killing mode, and that as the Beauties are still just trying to eke in there and squeeze every bit of clock out. That's going to be, did the Bombshell shift too soon, or will they be able to hang on for this one? We'll have to see. 42 seconds on the game clock. Oh my good, there's time for one more jam. The game clock, there's a 1 second advantage on the quarter clock over the game clock. So there will be one more jam no matter what happens here. Bitch Please, however, I've just been talking. The defense has been sterling. The Bombshells defense, they've gone halfway around the track in 30 seconds.
Super slow.
They're not even going to make 2/3 of a lap. Oh my goodness, the Bombshells have just ground this to an absolute halt. The crowd's starting to come to life for that. 10 seconds left. The Bombshells are just going to enforce their will in this jam and say, who said a 24-point lead is too close?
And they go
Shaking
ahead and
around
let
the
Bitch
outside.
Please right there, out right at the end,
Bitch
to no
Please
avail.
finally gets out. Yes, obviously, you have to be a lead jammer to call the jam. So if nobody gets out, then helpless duration. Like I said, one more jam. And what do we have?
Bombshells advantage is what we have.
I see.
2 penalties on the board.
I see, yeah. We have a penalty on the board for the jammer for the Brutal Beauties. So we have 1 jam in regulation left, and it's a power jam for the Bombshells. Bombshells up by 24, and on the jammer line for the Bombshells is Hannibal Lecture. So what we've got here, as the power jam starts, I'll keep you updated on the action. A penalty jam occurs after regulation. If the team that is ahead gets a penalty and the team that is behind doesn't have any penalties, then we have 1 jam, and that can repeat ad nauseum until you're sick, literally. So but you never get sick of it. So like we never reach ad nauseum. It's great. Meanwhile,
So very careful and tiptoey play
absolutely,
happening
that's what as
between
you see here. This is going to be
1
the
and
least
2.
hitty
Bombshells
roller
trying to get
derby. Yeah.
no penalties, and the
Right.
Beauties are like, all right. So you're basically grinding down the last 18 seconds of the clock, hoping that no penalties are being assessed during this very careful last jam in regulation. Tori and Slaya still actively and successfully working on Hanny.
That's right. So you're going to see here, like I said, the plan here, obviously, since the Beauties couldn't score anything, why bother? The Bombshells are just trying not to touch anyone. They're like, it's like 4 me's out there, terrified of physical contact. My goodness. We had a penalty on the
And
jammer for the Brutal Beauties. No, for the Bombshells.
So it'll be a power jam.
Will it be?
Power jam, penalty jam.
Is it? Did the Beauties skate clean? If they make the semi-horn signal, we'll see. Discussion. There is a penalty on the Bombshells. The Beauties the referees are moving out like there's another jam. We've got a penalty jam, and it's a
So-
power jam for the Brutal Beauties.
So they will have one more opportunity here, at least one, to
Wow.
put more points on the board.
It's a penalty power jam. It's the unicorn. It's a full pack. Penalty was picked up by the jammer for the Bombshells. Hannibal Lecture in the penalty box. So now, no time on the game clock. 150 to 126. The Beauties are down by 24. Hypothetically, a 5-scoring pass power jam
It
could
could
win it,
happen.
but
So Slaya
So,
approaches
yeah,
the back
basically,
of
yeah.
the pack.
I mean, the Beauties got to score points, and they got to skate penalty-free. That's what you got here. They got to skate penalty-free and manage to get
Was able to
Points
get
on the
out
board.
with 53 seconds
Right,
left.
right,
So
right.
has ideally the entire minute to score as many points as possible. There's a little bit of luck involved. A powerful counter block by Skid there in the
skid.
back.
Wow, goated.
Yep, stopping Slaya's forward momentum.
And a
Neutralizes
great-
Slaya
wow.
to the infield here in turn 3. Bombshells trying to get a 3-wall together in the back. High sweep by Razorcat here in turn 4. Slaya still working against Carrie and Slappy, and who else is up there? Scaring Jaeger.
I hear penalties raining in down there. I can't quite see the whiteboard from this angle, so I don't know what team has what.
There's at least some. There's one.
There are
thing
some, yeah, and now they
assessed
really
for pink.
they have slowed, and if we have a penalty on pink, that means that this is going to probably do it.
All right, we'll
because
wait
they
to
had
see how
skate
that
penalty
turns
free.
out.
And boy, it's hard when you're trying
4
to get
points
when you're
on the
trying to
board.
eke for every point. It's hard to skate penalty free for a full 60-second power. That's the challenge, obviously. That's why it's hard to win a game when you're down by that many points at the
Well,
end.
I mean,
It's-
even with
it's straight-
Haney's
it's yeah.
attempt, I think probably what happened is it's always going to be a little bit risky to skate with your arms above your head.
Yeah.
And I think that above shoulders challenge. All right, so
Okay.
the Beauties are challenging the looks like a cut penalty.
Yeah, the Beauties are challenging the penalty on. If it
Slaya.
was a cut, was it on there? I thought, again, my amateur eye, I
2-1-1.
thought she may have cut when she cleared the pack.
2-1-8-7.
That's Slaya.
Not sure. Yes,
Slaya.
that is Slaya. So right here in turn 2,
Yeah, right.
that is the one. There in turn 2 and here over here in turn 3 were the only times I remember her being on the infield.
Yeah, one of-
so
yeah,
that
one
would
of
be the
those.
time when that penalty would have been
Mhm.
assessed.
Yeah, cut track basically means that you came off and then you re-entered the track ahead of your legal position.
Correct.
Most often when you get blocked off.
Correct.
And then don't get back on behind your blocker. So that's what we're challenging here. Challenge underway. I mean, 4 points on the board for the Brutal Beauties. Right now the lead is 150-130. So the situation is the Beauties are basically suing for one more play. Yeah. They're trying to get one more jam here by getting the penalty rescinded.
But Red was not assessed a penalty, and the Beauties are not winning. So in this situation, I am unsure whether or not any penalty jams would be played.
Yeah, we'll have to see. That's why we let them go over all of that. Hey, don't forget here, coming up in the break, your food truck outside is all cooped up. Wonderful hand-breaded chicken strips and french fries. We've had them here before. Everybody loves it. They got fantastic sauces, I hear. So smells wonderful wafting in from the outside, so definitely check them out. Like we said, we got the silent auction. You've got the merchandise booth down here. The merchandise booth is where you get your league and team apparel, all sorts of fantastic stuff. We've got a discount rack. We've got the souvenir cups that you fill with fantastic foamy liquid. Get on down to the merchandise booth between bouts. The challenge is over. Let's get you back to the action.
Yeah, so it was basically a dead rubber challenge. So we do have Slaya winning that challenge right there at the end of the game. However, the Bombshells were not assessed a penalty and therefore skated clean. They are the team that's currently in the lead, meaning that there will be no further penalty jams and the game should come to a conclusion.
That is what we were advised of, and that is going to do it.
Yeah.
Final whistle, victorious.
20-point deficit.
20-point victory for the Bombshells. Bombshells ground the clock out in the end and are able to hold on 150-130, victorious. Give them hell, Bombshells. Bombshells will enter the playoffs as the 4 seed. As we said, that's coming up the second weekend of April. That is our playoff night, the round-robin tournament for seeds 2 through 5. And here come the Brutal Beauties. Beauties down big early and fought back into this thing. The smallest the lead was since the very, very early going was right at the end. Just ran out of time, unfortunately. Maybe could have done it with a couple more penalty jams at the very end there, but still, what an effort out of the Brutal Beauties. These teams could very easily face each other in the playoffs, so all these bouts tonight are potential playoff previews. Excellent effort by both of these squads, and both these squads played tough all year. These two teams, like I said, they both entered the game 0-3. However, they were in it in all of their bouts this year. None of the bouts this year have been, lopsided, total wipeout, blowout kind of bouts.
We are experiencing a lot of parity in the league right now. So all of the games, now that we'll say playoffs are on the horizon, even though they have a little bit more weight, they haven't lost any traction as far as excitement goes. So again, if this is your first time here, please get a season schedule before you exit the building tonight and come back to see the March 1st bout. If you're interested again in A-level bank track travel roller derby, come back and watch us at Chingadera.
All right, we'll be back after 30 minutes with our next bout. Step outside, check out All Cooped Up, check out the silent auction merchandise booth. Ask us, like I said, if you have any questions. I'll be hovering around. I'm wearing a Sriracha shirt tonight, I guess. I forgot what I was wearing. So, yeah, exactly. Anyway, we will step aside. Thank you so much, Al. Al, you're an encyclopedia of derby knowledge, and I love asking you questions and getting to learn things. I literally learn things every time I announce with you, and like multiple things. So, love having you on the stick.